We made this.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Pick a Disc. I am your host Matt Latham, and this is the podcast where someone picks a disc to talk about for whatever reason they want to. My voice is still slightly croaky from the Christmas and the laryngitis that I had. I am actually recording this intro pretty much soon after I recorded the previous one. But there will be no rapping for this one, rest assured. Anyway, the guest for today is Frankie from the Red and Buried podcast, who's going to be talking about Tegan and Sara's The Con. We talk about, the usual stuff, the album, the songs, blah, blah, blah. Talk about her relationship to music, the relationship to the album, the sense of geography it conjures, and you'll find out what that means later on, and all sorts of just normal conversations that we have about the album itself. If you like the podcast, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, join the Discord, all the information is in the show notes, blah, 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 blah. And with that, let's talk to Frankie. I think this will only make sense if anyone's listened to the wider We Made This Podcast world, but it's nice to be speaking to Frankie from the Dead and Buried podcast again, if not on this one, but on another one. Red and Buried. Oh, okay.
Close.
On the Red and Buried podcast. Well, okay. Shot myself in the foot there, but...
Big fan, huh? Big listener, all right.
Hey, in one of my defense, you keep saying it wrong. One of your hosts keeps getting it wrong.
Sarah.
So one of your
Yeah.
But yes. Fair. Yeah, but I have Frankie from the Red and Buried podcast. Yeah, I'm learning with me. So, how you doing, Frankie? You okay?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm surprised that you were letting me on this after I was on your wonderful Yellow Jackets podcast and I just talked about murderers and psychopaths the whole time. I thought that would get me barred. So thanks for letting me come on here.
I'm desperate for guests.
Oh, thank you for scraping the barrel and getting me in.
No, okay, no, it's fine. No, if anyone's not listen to Red and Buried, we'll probably chat about it afterwards, but really like it. At the moment, my crime fiction is apparently all the City Watch Discworld books at the moment, so that's my extent of that's my current crime writing. It's Terry Pratchett, but so we're not here to talk about books, we're here to talk about music. So we're talking about those booky things. We're going to here to talk about music, and you're here to talk about an album. When you tell the lovely listeners the disc that you've picked for today.
I have to say, this format for your show is very difficult, isn't it? Just to pick one album, for a start. I was really agonising over this, and there were a few contenders, a few potentials, but in the end, I settled on The Con by Tegan and Sara.
So why did you settle on The Con?
So, okay, just for I'm going to have to give a brief background about my journey through music, Matt. Which sounds incredibly wanky.
Oh no, this is the best podcast for it. I'm just going to sit back and rest my voice.
Perfect. Let's have a good old memory wank. So, I was born as a child. I went to a very small school. I went to an all-girls school, and it was all, in terms of musical interests and hobbies and things, pretty small. Pretty basic, I would say, kind of mainstream kind of musical tastes and whatnot. Then for sixth form, I went to a college, and there were boys at the college and everything. And it was quite the eye-opening experience, as you can imagine, after so long of just women for company. And through my new college, I met lots of new friends, which is really nice. And two of the girls that I met, and actually one of them is still my very best friend to this day. Hello, Edith. They used to put on shows, used to put on punk DIY shows at our local youth centre, the Guildford Youth Centre, which RIP, unfortunately, no longer lives. It's now been replaced with a Waitrose, as so many things have been in this world. And so I, from the age of about 16 to present, I would say, on and off, been going to DIY punk shows, and it was a very much a formative part of my musical experience, I would say, and my development of my taste. So I discovered through, I mean, some of the bands we had on actually were pretty amazing, considering it was a tiny youth centre in Guildford. We had like Send More Paramedics play, like a thrash metal. We had folk, we had pop punk, we had ska, we had kind of everything. So it was a really good education, I would say, across all types of different types of punk and indie and alternative music. So that was kind of my education into the genre.
What kind it's like deviation. So do you remember any kind of like shows or bands that any stick in the memory from those days? Or
yeah, I mean, as I said, Send More Paramedics, that show I will never forget because it was absolute carnage. And like the pit that formed and all that kind of thing was quite terrifying, genuinely. We also, not so many big bands. A lot of the bands I ended up becoming friends with and things as well. So there's a band called the JB Conspiracy. They're a ska punk band, still going to this day, still really good as well.
The name rings a bell, actually, think about it, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. They're always working and they're really, really good. And yeah, I mean, the loads. Lars, did you know MC Lars? Lars Horace? He played there once.
That one I don't recognise.
You might recognise one of the songs. Oh, Paul Barabeau played there once. Like, amazing indie American artist. I don't know how they got him to come, but it was amazing. I saw him play by like a little river in the village. It was ridiculous. So yeah, so many standout gigs, and yeah, as I say, really helped educate my musical taste. And then I discovered Tegan and Sara through, I can't even remember who introduced it. I think it might have been on someone made me a mixtape of some kind or a CD. And I think the first song I heard by Tegan and Sara was Living Room, which I don't know if you have heard that particular track. Do you know that one?
No, I'll get into my kind of history with Tegan and Sara a bit later on, but at the moment it's still about you rather than me, so... Yeah.
You're right, sorry, I'm just not used to the limelight like this. It's quite Living Room was, I think it's on that album If It Was You from 2002. And it was like, it's a really kind of folky song. And so I really liked it and I really liked their vocals. And I was, that piqued my interest. I was like, who are these girls? And then obviously learned that they are sisters. And they, really, really cool. And so I got into them from that, and like Walking with a Ghost, which is another song they have, which is pretty iconic as well. So I like that. And then in 2007, The Con came out. And at the time, I was in my third year of uni. And it was the album itself. I mean, we can get into the detail in a minute, but I chose it because it was, not only do I think it's a pretty much perfect album in terms of the journey you go through on it, the emotional range that it covers and all that kind of wanky stuff that we'll talk about. But I think also just at that point in my life, I had just the previous year broken up with a boyfriend who, it was a good breakup, like it was the right breakup, so it was fine, but still a bit emotionally, and that album covers such an emotional range that it was like the perfect breakup album to listen to a lot. And also I used to walk to campus and listen to it like almost every day for months, and it would cover my entire walk. So I'd start it as I was leaving, and by the time I got to campus I'd finished it. So I was like, this is the perfect length album for this walk. So yeah, when you asked me to pick one, which was very difficult, I thought about this one, and just I think there's so much to say about it, so I thought this was a good one to pick. I nearly chose When the Pawn by Fiona Apple for similar kind of emotional reasons, but let's go with Tegan and Sara. Let's go with The Con.
Yeah, I think when you first mentioned the Fiona Apple one, I was like, you can get half an episode of just saying the whole title, but in comparison,
a pretty long one.
Yeah, but in comparison, you've got a very brief title with the Con stuff. In terms of kind of like the sound of Tegan and Sara, the very kind of indie poppy kind of like sounds. Was you kind of into that? What else was you kind of listening to around that time? Because I'm assuming that wasn't the kind of stuff that was being played at these DIY shows. I get the impression there was slightly more kind of harsher, kind of scrappy punk stuff. So what connected with the indie pop? Was you a fan of this kind of music from the get-go, or what else were you listening to?
Yeah, I have quite a diverse musical taste, I would say. I like anything really that tells a story or has a real kind of emotion or feeling to it. shockingly, I really love hip hop. I love hip hop, and I always have. And which is obviously I'm the perfect audience for that as a white middle class woman from England. But I've always loved hip hop, and in terms of the music I was hearing at shows tended to be a little bit more on the hardcore side. Although there was elements of post-hardcore, there was pop punk within that as well. Pop punk in general is probably was my most listened to genre at the time. But when I grew up listening to things like Newfound Glory and Blink-182, like we all did. Yeah. And I've always had, you may be shocked to hear this, Matt, gothic leanings, I suppose.
No.
You could say. Yeah, no. A little bit.
No, I would never have got that. Listen to at least 2 podcasts that you've hosted in the past for the last couple of years. I would never have gotten that.
No. Yeah. I tend to, hide my darkness under a bushel. That's the opposite of it. Yeah. I've always kind of liked the darker side of things. I was a proper goth as a teen as well, like with the whole Rammstein kind of predilection, Cold Chamber, Slipknot, all that kind of thing as well. Okay. But at the time, I think that came out, I was going to a lot of local shows still. And actually, so the Surrey music scene, which is a funny sentence in itself because it sounds incredibly middle class and twatty. The Surrey music scene.
It consisted of several violins and cellos in every show.
It should. It really sounds like that, doesn't it? So Guildford, there's the other thing I didn't mention. So from going to gigs and going to shows, there was also a forum at the time, because this was back when the internet was in its heyday, unlike now. So there was a website, it was a forum that I used to go on and all the time, called Punk News, and it was kind of the central DIY punk forum for the UK. And from that, found loads of different other scenes within the UK. So I started going to shows further afield. So from Guildford, then Brighton, the Brighton punk music scene was great. And then Kingston, which is a little bit closer to Surrey, but I got really into the kind of Kingston music scene as well. So a lot of indie around then. I remember that, I think around that time, Get Cape, Wear Cape, Fly album was out. I was listening to that a lot. And I was working at HMV at that point as well. So I got, the discounts, which was very helpful.
Oh, so did you ever go to the New Slang nights then?
Yes, yeah.
I never get to them, and I'm slightly too old now, but I would just see the playlist stuff. I'm like, why the frickin' hell isn't this near me?
Yeah, I used to go to New Slang a lot. I really did, especially around after uni. I think was the year I graduated. I think New Slang started, and I know all the guys that put it on, because I used to go to all the shows. And so he's a friend of mine now, but there's a singer called Dave House who I used to listen to a lot, and around that time as well. So it's all that kind of, I was definitely into that kind of genre. Tegan and Sara have gone on a bit of a musical journey, I would say, in terms of their development. They started off quite punky in their early days when it was just the two of them, and their influences were definitely punk. Then they've kind of gone a bit folky, and now I would say they're definitely indie pop. They've definitely kind of gone on a journey. I would say The Con isn't that poppy of an album. I don't know what you think.
I got a very I definitely got a kind of sense of an indie poppy. They're not indie pop as what I've always seen indie pop to be, but they've got there's a very kind of folkish element to them. So I've often, and I'll get to my disclosure now. Actually, the my disclosure bit of the podcast, in that Tegan and Sara were kind of a band that I'm aware of. I've seen them all the time. I've never really listened to them, even though I have seen them live once. Well, I say seen them live. They supported the Killers in 2012.
Okay.
And I remember kind of trying to listen to a bit of them beforehand, but I think pretty much because I was designated driver, we got there about halfway through the set, so I missed the first bit. But they did play the one song that I know, which was called, funny enough, I know. Yeah. The only reason I know that is, and I'm getting a bit hazy on this, and I can't remember why, but I remember, I think this was, and I can't remember when exactly, but I remember either Googling them or Ash Stevens them or whatever the time it was, going onto the website. And I think at the time they had, and this must have been this is pretty much when there was dial-up. That's how long ago it was. I think, I can't remember. Someone's going to come back and say no, but I know, and it was only released last year. But I think,
No.
and I'm pretty sure he was either in the TV series or something, or he was in the background or something. But I remember going onto their website, and there was like a built-in like real player type thing, and the first song that would only load because it timed out. Because it timed out, was a very kind of low quality version of the first half of I Know, and I think I still have kind of like the MP3 that I from Gazar of that song, but that's pretty much the only song I ever knew about them, and they've always been someone I think like there's probably everyone's got loads of these where I'm thinking, I probably would like them if I just sat down and gave them a listen. And then pretty much 15 years passed, I'm like, oh, okay, someone's picked them for the podcast. I can finally live a listen there.
Better finally sit down.
So they're just like one of those names that's always been there, but I've never really gotten to them. And it was only until, I think, today, actually, that I realised they're actually also singing the chorus of Everything Is Awesome from the Lego Movie. I never realised it was them. So that's two songs they're involved with that I knew of.
There you go.
But yeah, so that's...
Big fan.
So yeah, so I wasn't really sure what to expect. I was expecting something very similar to, like, I don't know, Imogen Heap-esque, kind of dark folky, kind of like dark folk. So I never really kind of delved into it. So I'm like, okay, I have to be in a certain mood to get into that and stuff, or like kind of putting with those kind of like singer-songwriter writers, not Alanis Morissette, like again like Fiona Apple, or kind of like the experimental stuff. So which is not stuff that I usually listen to. So they kind of I held back from listening to them because I always lumped them with that. So I thought, if I've got nothing to listen to. So yeah, so pretty much I'm coming to this fairly kind of blind most of the time. So
Nice.
yeah. So yeah, but so anyone listening to this going, they have no idea who Tegan and Sara are. So, Tegan and Sara, a Canadian indie pop duo formed in 1998 in Calgary, Alberta. The band is led by two identical twin sisters, Tegan Rain Quinn and Sarah Kirsten Quinn, both musicians, as songwriters and multi-instrumentalists. To date, the duo has released 10 studio albums. They've earned a Grammy nomination in 2012 for their video album Get Along. Their 10th album, Crybaby, was released in October 21st in 2022. And they released a memoir a couple of years ago called High School.
It's really good.
And the TV series of the same name, okay, I didn't realise there was a TV series based on that, was released on Amazon Freevee in the fall of 2022. So have you read or watched them at all?
I've read the book. Yeah, I really, really like the book. It's all about them growing up as teens in Calgary. And also, I mean, not that it's relevant to the music. Well, I suppose it is because it all informs it, but they are both gay. As well, and it's a lot about their formative years and them finding themselves, their sexuality, and their journey into music as well. So it's really good. And yeah, I haven't watched it yet, though. I know it's on Amazon Prime. I'm definitely going to check it out at some point.
I think one of the big things that I know of them through kind of cultural osmosis, and I think is part of kind of their identity and their a lot of their identity, and is that they're both gay, and they're very kind of pro LGBTQ.
Yeah,
I don't think they've played Pride, but I think because quite a good chunk of my kind of music taste is from the LGBTQ plus community.
Yeah,
they do kind of pop up a few times in feeds and stuff. So I can't really talk more about that because I'm again straight white man, but so I can't really talk more about that. But the Con, released on the 24th of July 2007, it charted at number 4 in Canada and number 34 on the Billboard 200. So from what I've been reading about this, then it felt like a slight departure from their kind of earlier stuff. So I think one of the questions that I probably forgot to ask in this bit was the Con one of the first albums you listened to from them, or was you a fan of them beforehand?
Yeah, I was a fan beforehand. I wouldn't say I was heavy duty though, into it. I'd listened to If It Was You, which I think was one of their earlier albums. But it's one of those ones where I liked a few of the tracks, you know, and I'd kind of dip in and out. As I said, Living Room, I loved. And when I first heard that, I kind of played that on repeat for ages, and Walking with a Ghost, and yeah, the odd track here and there. But The Con was probably the first album of theirs that I listened to on repeat solidly, over and over again. Yeah.
Oh, so did you actually go out and was you waiting for it, or did you just listen to it on a whim, or?
I think I'm trying to remember how I got my copy. And I think this is going to show my age as well, right? So I think it was a friend of mine had it on CD and I ripped it and put it on my iPod. Do you remember those days?
Yes. Yeah.
Glorious times. Yeah, that was when you had to have physical media to get them on a virtual medium on your phone, or not on your phone. God, that would light years ahead. But yeah, I remember I ripped it and I put it on my iPod.
Oh, okay. So you basically just borrowed it from a friend. The 2007 borrow. So
yes, exactly.
In air quotes, the borrow.
The borrow, indeed.
Yeah, and then it was just like, oh, you just give it a listen to, and then it was like, bam. Oh, okay. So how much? Yeah. So is it very similar to the stuff beforehand, or because from what I'm gathering, it's slightly different, or it's a slight evolution from what there was in the past.
My observation and not somebody that really knows a lot about musical production or anything like that, is that I think they've kind of gotten progressively poppier over the years as they've gone. I think they started off quite punky, quite folky, and they've slowly evolved. Like there's albums later on where they've gone a bit more electro poppy in a lot of ways, which is really, fun. It's obviously their musical journey as well. But I would say the Con felt like a very significant album for them, and I think I did a bit of reading about it as well in preparation for this, and I know that it was quite an emotional album for them. I think as well their early work was a lot about themselves as young gay girls and finding themselves and their growing up. And I feel the Con was maybe their first kind of mature output, shall we say, where they're a bit more established. And I know they both had a lot of emotional stuff going on at the time. I believe their grandmother had just died, who was basically like another mother to them. So there's a lot of heavy kind of grief within it. And then also, I forget which one. I know they're twins, but they are different people. I know one of them had a breakup previously when they wrote it, and the other one was struggling to get their girlfriend over through immigration in Canada. So there's a lot going on. I don't know if it was necessarily a good year for them emotionally, but musically very productive, I suppose. So yeah, I would say it's maybe a little rawer and maybe a little bit heavier, but there are twinges of pop within it, and I think that's kind of the start of their pop journey.
Yeah, I think, and this was, is it the fifth or the fourth?
Fifth. Yeah.
So they've been kind of writing for a time. So when were their other albums? Just out of curiosity. So they had, now that's their filmography, Matthew.
Yeah, If It Was You was 2002.
It was two, and then there was one before. Then there was one, So Jealous.
Yeah, So Jealous.
Yeah. So okay, so then there was probably about 18, 19 in the first one, but there's a 3-year gap between So Jealous was one before. So you've gone from 23, 24 to 27, and even though people were saying like, oh yeah, when you go like 3 years is different when you're a teenager, so 14, 17 is different. But I still think particularly, even hindsight, but then again, I'm saying this as someone in the end of the 30s, like I think there is still, particularly in the mid-20s, and I think I'm starting to see patterns, and I've come into like certain themes that come up in previous episodes, particularly when artists who've been writing for a while start reaching the kind of mid to late 20s. There's the just oh yeah, I've just come out of university. You're still unsure that you're supposed to grow up yet. Then you've got the kind of as you go through the 20s, you're like shit, I need to start getting mature. And then as soon as you hit 25, 26, it's like shit, I don't want to be mature. There's all these things happening, and you have that, and particularly with bands who you've perhaps followed for a couple of albums, when you start hitting the mid-20s, things start feeling like the boring, monotonous stuff in the end, as long as, but you don't hear, it's not that boring, it's more the kind of, the things they sing about change. Although I've yet to find a band that's written a song about mortgages, but, mortgage application.
I was just thinking that guy either Who Give You Extra, but that was a cover, wasn't it? That wasn't.
Yeah, that's the is it Derek from Halifax?
Halifax, yeah. That was a cover.
Who Gives You Extra? God, what was the original? What was that song? What's the song it's parodying?
Who Let the Dogs Out?
Oh yeah, that's it. I can't believe I've forgotten that one.
How could you forget?
Yeah.
The Baha Men. Jesus.
Yeah, but I think it's like when things start change, like relationships with friends change, and you start to begin to have a bit more of a kind of wider understanding of adulthood, and like your viewpoints of the generation before you or your parents start to change, because you start to realize, oh shit, they probably don't know anything either. So I can kind of and this is things that like I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know I've talked about that kind of theme in previous episodes, where like artists are like, oh crap, we've got all these things, and the only way we need to vent out is through song. But then, and I think as well that, and I'm pretty sure the Los Campesinos episode, from episode 100 was this as well, is that if you've got fans who are kind of the same age, you start to, when they start to relate to the things that they're going through along with the artist. So when you have kind of grandparents that pass away, or relationships that end and stuff. Yeah. You you can kind of see the kind of growing up of the artist alongside with the growing up of the audience as well. And as you said, I think you'd recently kind of had a breakup at the time, so I think you connected with that bit as well. So they had that kind of. Is it slightly more polished, or more? It's just more mature, or?
Yeah, I think a bit of both. Yeah, definitely more mature. I think, as you say, they've obviously grown up on as part of it, and then also nothing kind of forces you to grow up more than grief, like a loss or a death. So they've obviously had that element. And I would say polish wise, the production on it. I think their earlier albums definitely felt a bit more gritty, shall we say, in that kind of indie way that they did in the noughties. I feel like this was a much more polished production, and more complex as well. Like there's definitely more experimentation with different styles and sounds within the album, I would say.
Yeah, and interesting, as I'm just looking on the Wikipedia article, because I'm admittedly basic when it comes to research. The producer is actually a guy called Chris Waller, who former member of Death Cab for Cutie.
There you go.
And immediately seeing that, I'm like, this reminded me so much of Death Cab. It's ridiculous.
That's a good point. Actually, I didn't know that. That doesn't now it makes sense when you say that.
Yeah. So he was kind of involved in. He was involved as kind of like the producer of this. So so again, the Decemberist, the Crane Wife, Death Cab for Cutie plans. He was a producer and engineer for that as well. And as well as the next few albums, and I can pretty much see there's that kind of. Oh, he was also an engineer for Rocky Volato album, but it's not the one that I've listened to. So I can kind of. I can kind of see that, because my next phase is, what things have I listened to this remind me of, and it's again Death Cab, but a slightly more kind of slightly more optimistic version of Death Cab, but I can kind of see the kind of like almost adult, like the looming kind of responsibilities of adulthood that hit once you get to past the mid-20s, start to kick in and everything. But interestingly as well, reading from the Wikipedia page, songs that Tegan wrote, because I think they kind of share like writing. So like it'll be one of them writing and the other one. Because is it are previous albums like that where they're kind of separate writing, or do they kind of?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe they do. That's kind of how they tend to work, from what I gather. Yeah.
Okay.
I guess it's interesting, isn't it? How it's still cohesive but separate in that respect.
Yeah, so it doesn't seem to be. Well, I've not read much about how much crossover there is in terms of the writing and stuff, but from the actual track listing, it is a case of it's out of the 14 songs, it's Sarah, Sarah, Tegan, Sarah, Tegan, Sarah, Tegan, Tegan, Sarah, Tegan, Sarah, Sarah, Tegan, Tegan. So yeah, none of them. There's no song with both of them.
No.
Writing on. So I'm assuming like that the case, and whoever's writing is like kind of lead vocals and everything. But there's I think one of the things that I kind of got is that there's very strong harmonies in this as well. So yeah, which are very kind of almost like hauntingly beautiful, to borrow a phrase from Tracy from Reading Music.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think and from what I remember, from what I've kind of gathered from them, that it's like a very kind of almost unique selling point to them, where they've got that kind of almost hauntingly, haunting is probably the best word for it. That vocal harmonizing sound.
Yeah, and it's because their voices are so, I mean, they're twins, but their voices are so similar, but it just kind of creates a very powerful, like almost joined sound, but it's not joined. It's like, it's very, they mesh very perfectly together, and it is that haunting effect, as you say. It's kind of like if the twins from The Shining, I suppose, started a band. You get that kind of joined up vocal, like the "Come Play With Us," but much, much prettier to listen to.
Okay.
But because they don't really do, in any of their songs, that I may be wrong, I'm not 100% on all their back catalogue, but they don't really do like taking it in turns to sing, or one does one verse, one does the other. They sing everything together, really, and it just creates that really powerful joined up sound between the two of them, and it creates that haunting effect that you've so astutely observed.
Yeah, well, thank you. But because I was trying to figure out if there was a kind of lead vocalist, and again, because the voices are so similar, I've only listened to the album all the way through about twice.
Yeah.
So I didn't really have time to kind of tell who was singing what.
The voices are very similar.
Yeah. But there's for like most of the album, they are pretty much singing at the same time.
Yes.
And and that effect is like kind of, again, quite unique, I think. Well, quite unique. Well, it's probably not unique. It's probably other bands that do something similar, but I also think they've got like kind of unique sound. Like you'll listen to them and you can tell it's a Tegan and Sara. Tegan and Sara's song, but it's them two that are singing.
Yeah, for sure. That's just reminded me, I think another band that I used to listen to a lot, possibly after this, or my timeline's a mess, but like We Are Scientists, they do a similar thing in some of their tracks as well, when they both sing together, and I think it creates that kind of layered but joined up sound.
I think, We Are Scientists, a band that I've seen live once, because there was a Dot to Dot when I went,
right.
But I've not listened to any of their albums, and again, and again, people are saying, and people keep saying to me, "Goes like, you should listen to them," and I'm like, "Oh, well, eventually." Yeah, and just don't. A
lot of albums out there.
Yeah,
not a lot of time. I understand.
Yeah, other albums and artists are available. So yes, let's talk about the actual songs themselves. So when you listen to this, which songs kind of jump out to you that you kind of want to talk about?
They're all really good, which sounds like a complete cop-out. I will pick individual ones.
You're going to have to. I can't.
Yeah, fine. Okay. So the intro song is so kind of gentle and emotional, which is I Was Married. And it kind of lulls you in. And so that is a beautiful entry point, I would say. The title track, The Con, I can totally see why they made that the title track, because it's just, it's a real standout. I think it's it's emotional, it's dramatic and powerful, and it's really, it's so raw in a lot of ways, but also incredibly polished. So totally contrary terms there, but I think that is a really standout one. I'm just looking at the track listing now to try, because they're all so good, and the beauty of a good album is certain songs will jump out at you at certain times in your life, or at certain points in your day, or anything. You get a craving for a certain one. Call It Off, which is actually the last song on the album, is like a perfect round off to that. And I feel like it's almost like the closure of their grief and their emotion. It's them at the end of the breakup, presumably, getting over the death, and it's that rounds it off really nicely. God, I could do this every single track. To be honest.
I think we'll get to a few specific ones, but I think as you just mentioned them, I was kind of, as you were talking, I was kind of like through my headphones, just quickly breezing through, I think I Was Married and Call It Off. And in my head, I was pretty much, as you said, it pretty much soundtracked your campus walk.
Yeah.
In my head now, I've got kind of like Frankie, the movie. Where like,
what a boring film.
Yeah.
Yes.
Frankie walks to campus.
Yeah.
Which is like the world's worst like college comedy ever.
All right. I try to make it. I'll slip on a banana peel or something if it helps. I don't know.
No, but like you can kind of get the picture. Like, okay, comes out, and then you got your protagonist walking out, headphones in, walking out, and you got I Was Married as the crane shot comes out on the start of the walk, and then cuts to 36 minutes later, and you got a kind of Frankie, our protagonist, walking to campus as Call It Off. You can kind of see the kind of visual, kind of like soundtracky bit to it. And
you would say,
yeah. And I'm saying, I'm assuming that because it's pretty much saved the length, I'm pretty sure there are moments and parts that when you listen to some of these, you'll remember which part of your
the walk
commute.
I was on. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely got a geographical association.
Yeah. So any highlights in terms of like there's not like a
the walk?
Yeah. Any specifics? I mean, like any specifics, like if you listen to, it's like more kind of memorable parts of the walk, like or like landmarks or anything at certain points or.
Yeah, so I went to university in Winchester, which I don't know if you've ever been to Winchester. It's very pretty. It's nice. Yeah, it's historical. It was an original capital of England. The Round Table is there if you ever fancy a visit. The oldest bit of wall is also there. Not that I saw these on my walk, but they were around. And just knowing that they're there, really makes the walk exciting. It was all pretty green. Exactly. It was all pretty green, pretty leafy. I mean, the kind of, I would say it meets, it's such wanky language, I'm so sorry. It meets its emotional crescendo, probably like at the midpoint of the album. See, I told you, because it goes from the con, which is quite a banger, and then Knife going in is a very emotional, like stabby, literally kind of feeling and very draining. And then it kind of softens up a little bit, and increasingly towards the end, you're coming for like a softer landing, I would say. That being said, the actual subject lines of them, maybe not as soft, like dark, you can't come soon enough to me is quite bleak now that I think about it. That's about death, isn't it? But maybe that's just comforting to me as a, gothically inclined.
The great boost that you need as you go to
ready to die. Yeah. Always. One thing I was going to say that I found really interesting, and another reason why I guess I Was Married had particular significance. In 2017, it was the 10-year anniversary of this album, and they released a covers album of this album. So lots of different artists covering the con. And and it's really good and really interesting kind of take approaches and different artists that you wouldn't necessarily expect that did covers. And I Was Married, I cannot pronounce this girl's surname, Sara Bareilles. She did that. Do you know who I mean?
So. She did Love Song.
Is that how you say it?
Yeah, she did Love Song and Brave. That's the only one.
That's right. Yeah, so she covered I Was Married. I believe it was her. I hope it was her.
No, she covered, I've got the listing up. Floor Plan.
Who covered I Was Married?
Floor Plan.
Floor Plan.
I Was Married was Ruth B.
Ruth B. That song, her cover of it is so pretty that I had it on my wedding ceremony playlist.
Oh, okay.
Because, married, wedding, pretty song kind of felt right for the playlist. So that was part of I believe the music that I signed the register to.
Oh, wow. I see. So that's one of the covers and stuff. But actually, I was looking at this. There's a very very interesting list of
varied, right?
Yeah. So Moon is there. City in Colour, Paris, Hayley Williams, Bleachers, Churches.
Yeah, they're a real mix.
Yeah, Bleached. Bloody hell, I haven't heard of them for ages. And Cyndi Lauper.
That's pretty cool,
as
right?
well. Wow. So that's an interesting mix of artists. I think pretty much saying as well that I think that Tegan and Sara are kind of at a level of kind of where they can kind of pull those names to do those covers. I mean, I think Bleachers is yes, yeah, it was. Yeah, I just double checked. It is Jack Antonoff. So it's Jack Antonoff. Yeah, Hayley Williams, Paramore. Yeah, so they're kind
Big
of
names.
got that.
Cindy.
Yeah. So if we go back to the song, so which one kind of do you want to talk a bit more in depth first?
Well, okay.
Can't stall anymore.
I know, I'm really trying. I need to very transparent, aren't I? I think I will. Let's go with the con. Because it's the title track, and I think it's a perfect song.
Okay, so what is it about this song?
I think it's so incredibly powerful. As you said, the vocals already are incredibly haunting and beautiful, but they're really amped up in this, and I would say, and it's dramatic, which that really appeals to me, and still has that kind of storytelling aspect to it that I always look for in a good song. So it starts off small, and then the kind of chorus is really emotional and powerful. It's like, nobody likes me. Like, nobody likes you when I cry. Maybe people will like me if I cry. So it's all about crying, which I think appeals to me as well as an emotional person. But it just feels like there's a real a resonance in it, and it's a song that you can listen to when you're sad, when you're angry, or just wanting to hear a really good song. And I appreciate that very much.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't think I'd class it as a happy sad song, but I think what I mean by that is that it jumps into the it has that very soft bit in it, and then suddenly just jumps in for the rest of the song quite quickly. So you think what sounds like a slow build up just kicks in with the pre-chorus straight away. Yeah, and I think and I'm trying to figure out why title tracks of albums interest me. Is like, there's a reason that you have to you're naming the album and the song of this, so it's got to be kind of the centerpiece. And very weird that it happens quite this early on in the track listing. Actually, usually they're in either halfway or the third quarter of an album. But I think in terms of this, the chorus, as you said, nobody likes to, but I really like to cry. Nobody likes me, maybe if I cry. The Genius Annotation is saying, the Genius Annotation is like, making yourself cry to get someone to like you, even though you secretly like it, is a con, and that's what it says. But so there's
manipulation.
So there's the manipulation, or kind of not being able to take things at face value, or trying to read what people's true intentions are. And which so is this who
wrote this one?
Yeah, this was Tegan Quinn, and I think Tegan was the one who was going through the breakup at the time. So this feels kind of like one of the breakup songs. And
it could also be about immigration, because is that not a con in a lot of ways?
Nobody likes to
process.
Basically crying to get through Canadian immigration.
Maybe they'll let me in if I cry.
Yeah.
Good try.
Side note, I think I've only been to the US once, and US visit. This was in 2010, and that was the most stressful thing ever. Did
you cry?
No, I should have. No, but
there you go.
Yeah, it's like 10. It's like 10 ways, because my friend Lee, and some guy called Tony. I don't know if you know him.
I've heard of that guy. Yeah.
The Lord and Chief of who we made this. We went over to. We took the plane to Texas, Dallas Fort Worth, because we was meeting our friend Waylon, who lived in Oklahoma, who comes down to pick us up, and we. Genesis, and the reason I met Tony was we met through an online community for script writing. Stuff, and we'd already had the one-on-one interviews where they take a picture and go, why are you here, how much money have you got, are you doing this, are you seeing, are you traveling, are you blah blah blah. And then we just going for another bit, and then this other guy, this guy must have been about 18, 19, young, wanting to get employee of the year or some employee of the month or something.
Job's worth.
Yeah, was speaking to me and my friend Lee behind us. Tony was there trying to remember where he put his bloody passport. So he was put passport and stuff, and he was talking to us, and he going so you meet friends and stuff, and he goes, how did you meet my friend? There he goes, we met our friend Wayne. We met through a website, and suddenly the dollar signs saw in this guy's eyes saying, "Ooh, a website. What kind of?" So this was 2010 as well. So he's like, "Ooh, online. Ooh, people met online."
What about Ashley Madison?
Yeah, and he went. And he goes how did you meet? And he goes, oh, through a kind of writing website. And through a writing website. And I'm looking, and I just looks at my mate going, what? And the guy looks at, and the security guard's like, kind of like, oh, have I got a potential terrorist here? Went from, what, like poetry? And I'm there going like, no, I got script writing and stuff. And I'm like, oh, don't, just let us through. But still like, I'm pretty sure I was like, I don't want to be arrested.
Yeah.
So yeah, but then I'm thinking, you know what, we should have just cried.
There you go. Now you know.
Yeah.
Maybe they would have seen that as an admission of guilt for your terrorist poetry that you were writing.
Yes,
together.
yes. For the record, I don't write terrorist poetry. It's
okay. I feel like if me thinks that I just protest too much, man. I don't know.
Okay. But yeah. So but yeah, I can probably see the kind of the immigration side of the song stuff.
That is a con for sure.
Interestingly enough, one of the original names for the song apparently was called "Encircle Me," which I think might have been.
That's one of the lines.
Yeah, and I think there was. I think the con was supposed to be the main. I think always the name, but I think "Encircle Me" was going to be one of the name of this title anyway. Name of the title of this song originally.
Yeah, because there's one of the part of the song is "Encircle." I'm going to try and sing it.
Where do you want to move on to next?
I will go with "Back in Your Head."
Okay. Yeah. So what is it about this one?
This one is a softer one, I would say, in terms of the emotional aspect or the drama of it. It's I always think of the opening line of it is really good. It's just like, build a wall of books between us in our bed, and it's a kind of, it's, to me, it's a song about being in a relationship and couplingness, and it's that kind of thing of, we're together, but there's a divide between us, and I just want to get in your head and, you know, get back in it and see where you're at, see if you still think of me and all that kind of thing. And so it has that kind of resonance, but it's also just like a nice fun one to sing along with at the same time. So yeah, I think that's a good song to, I think they're all good, but yeah.
Yeah, this is the this is kind of like, this is slightly more happy sad song, I think, but
yes,
yeah, so again it feels kind of like the pop, like the pop bop or the pop banger. But yeah, when you actually listen to the lyrics and stuff, it feels, I thought it was kind of like, I think it's kind of like the kind of towards the end of a relationship more than anything, because like with the idea being or like the start of drifting apart. But I'll stray when I get a little scared, which is, what's your take on that line?
I think that's it screams insecurity, doesn't it? It's like, I think it's somebody maybe that wants to be loved, wants to be needed, but also is terrified of not being wanted or needed, and, you know, will need someone to validate them, perhaps. Yeah,
I think there's that as well. But I also think that, again, if I'm not unfaithful but astray, I'm wondering that's a case of, if I'm not getting attention here, might be getting attention elsewhere. Yeah.
Emotional cheating, the kind of emotional relationships that people can have. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Feel that void that they may be feeling.
But yeah, and again, like the second verse starts with, when I jerk away with holding hands from you. Again, feeling like that, like, again, just like the separation of the growing, like separation of both.
That's a breakup one for sure.
Yeah. But then with the kind of like almost growing defeatist aspect of it, like, I just want back in your head again in the point where I think perhaps more near the start of kind of relationships where, like, you seem to be, that was the other person's in your head for most of the time, but then I think as time goes on, or if the relationship starts to dissolve or start to break up or anything, like, they're in your head less, or they're in head for, or you're in the head for different reasons.
Yeah,
I think I quite like the self-defeating kind of, I just want back in your head, but I don't think I don't think I can be. I think I kind of like that kind of self-defeatist, like almost false, like last slip of optimism, which kind of feels fruitless. And I quite like that kind of. But that's my reading of that of the chorus.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a whole bit which is like run, run, run. So yeah, maybe it's conflicted emotions within it.
Yeah. So that was back in your head. So any others?
I will call out one more. Floor Plan.
Okay.
And to me, I think this might be a griefy song about grief. I mean, you can grieve in a number of ways for a number of things, right? You can grieve a death, you can grieve a relationship, you can grieve, all sorts of things. But there's a line in it that really stands out for me where it's now I had it in my head a second ago and it's gone. I'll hold this loss in my heart forever, and I'll hold this pain in my heart forever. That kind of as part of the chorus. And I think and there's also a line of all eyes are on me now. And I think it's in people like when you go through something horrific or traumatic or awful in your life and everyone's looking at you all the time to be like, how are you doing? Are you okay? Everyone's watching you. People, it's well-meaning for the most part, but it's that awareness that people are looking at you because they're waiting for you to have a breakdown or waiting for you to cry at the border to avoid terrorism charges or whatever. It's that to me, it feels like a very relatable kind of feeling. I think everyone that's been through anything sad or traumatic or difficult in their lives where you are, and I personally feel very uncomfortable with it. I don't know about you, when everyone's looking at you to see how you react to something, and particularly something emotional, and you feel very vulnerable in that position. And I feel that song kind of encapsulates that vulnerability.
From the flip side of that, I do think as well, there's probably a bunch of people who perhaps either not sure how to react or or don't know how to or don't know what to say or anything. And so like someone's like experiencing grief or something and you're not sure how to, and I don't think you can't really, yeah. And it's one of those really tough things where like you'd like to, I would like to know what to say to kind of make you feel better, but you definitely can't stuff. And and I think this is kind of like a reaction to that, saying like, yeah, I want to draw you I like to tell you what draw the floor plan and
my head and heart.
Yeah. I say I would like to. If I knew what you could say to help kind of heal what's going through, I would tell you, but because of what a bastard grief is,
it's very difficult to articulate.
I can't. So best thing either to just stand there nodding or just let me find it in my own way and stuff. And then so this is again props to the another immigration song, but I can kind of see that, and it's really kind of nice way of kind of like expressing that. In terms of that, there was one that stood out to me, which I don't think we've spoken about. Just bear me a second. I'm just going to quickly.
Did you like the album?
I did like the album. Yeah, I really quite liked it. I think it's I think Tegan and Sara again. This is like kind of ones that have always been kind of in the back burner. I'm like, oh, I'll listen to them eventually. I did quite like the kind of. I was expecting this to not be as indie, Indian. Energetic's the wrong word. And upbeat, up tempo in places. So I mean, it's got its soft bits, and stuff, but there's a lot more kind of almost popish, bops to it. Yeah, Hop a Plane, that was it.
Yeah, that's a good song.
Hop a Plane has
about immigration again.
This is the grief one, isn't it? No, So the sound of this one, this reminds me quite a lot of kind of almost like the kind of Californian kind of surfish rock stuff. I'm going to assume, only because it always pops up that you like their posts, Best Coast.
I love Best Coast. Yeah.
Best Coast. Again, I think I only know two that I keep meaning to listen to. I've listened to, I think California Nights and Always Tomorrow. But there's that guitar sound. It's got that very kind of West Coast, kind of Bethany Costantino. Is it Costantino?
I think so.
Bethany from Best Coast.
Yep.
Basically, it's got that kind of Best Coast kind of sound to it.
Yeah.
And I remember listening to that and like again thinking, because I'm pretty much like almost, because I think it always says like, oh, like Frankie as well, pretty much on like all the Best Coast stuff. I'm like, I'm pretty sure she might be a fan of Best Coast then. I'm
a really big fan of Best Coast. I was tempted to pick a Best Coast album essentially as well, but I didn't.
Yeah, but I think and I think as I was listening to that, I was going to ask a question. I'm assuming that kind of like indie, kind of almost West Coasty indie pop sound is also kind of like Was this before you listened to Best Coasts?
Yeah, this was before Best Coast. Yeah. I only came to Best Coast relatively recently, probably in the last 3 or 4 years that I came to Best Coast. And yeah, now I'm on the back catalogue and I'm obsessed. Yeah.
But I think that kind of but I think there's a bit of crossover in sound, I think, in terms of that. And I was like, oh yeah, and I was listening to this and it was like, oh yeah, it reminds me of that. In the back of my head, I was going to say,
yeah, I seem to have a type, don't I? Which is like angsty women that make it sound a bit more upbeat, like poppy, fun, but emotionally heavy.
Happy, sad songs are great. There's quite a lot. There's quite a lot of my music taste is very similar to the kind of like female singers who are kind of like singing, "Oh, we're going to die, la 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 la." Have you ever heard of? Have you listened to Alex Leahy?
No, I haven't. I know the name, but I've never listened. Yeah.
Alex Leahy is very much like that. Very kind of like, yeah. I think if you, I guarantee. I think you probably really like. If you listen to, I think the first album, "Love You Like a Brother," I think you'll like that one because it's very similar to this.
Yeah,
very
I'll check
similar
it
to
out.
this.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah, so basically, I haven't. The song called "I Haven't Been Taking Care of Myself," which is just pretty much sung in a very upbeat and just talking about I've been eating too much and drinking too much and stuff. So it's that kind of stuff. But so that kind of sound kind of like jumped out to me because I think it's because it was more kind of like, oh, okay, I really quite like that because it's a lot more kind of that sound, and I really quite like that sound.
Yeah, and you're right. There's still that sadness to it because the line, "All I need to hear is that you're not mine."
Yeah,
you're not mine. Yeah, it's almost like the getting over it. Like I need to just get over this and move on.
Yeah.
Tell me what I need to hear.
Again, it's the example, like the... Okay, I mean, we're saying this as technically the Canadian, but there's the American kind of romantic comedy / sitcom, like, trope of, oh, let's take a plane, or like, oh, as soon as someone goes on a plane, they, like, it's over, it's done.
Run to the airport and, yeah.
Exactly. So there's a kind of symbolism. There's a symbolism of that, of like the airplane, or like the airplane, or like the machine that will take them towards a long distance away from you and stuff. And I don't quite like that. But I think it was mainly the sound. It was mainly kind of the sound and the kind of like surfy-ish guitar that I was pretty much a fan of for that one. So before we move on, is there any other songs you briefly want to very, very mention before we move on? We might have time for one more.
Just read off the whole track listing. Again, okay, I mean, they're similar, I suppose, in terms of sounds to that one is probably "Burn Your Life Down," because that one, again, is, it's kind of relatively upbeat, boppy, but then it's, there's that bit where it's like, I travel around the court and I'm not looking to my right. I feel the glass against my cheek and I can see you in the light. So that to me is like a car crash, like you're getting hit, and it's that emotional kind of pow punch in the face that they're so good at doing in these songs. And yeah, but again, like a really fun one, like cheery one to sing along to, but it's again that emotional undertone that runs throughout.
Yeah,
they're all good songs. Listen to the whole album, everybody.
Yeah,
it's just really good.
I mean, again, it's the kind of outro, kind of like that burst of like kind of energy at the end of that one, where it's and again, it's like la 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 la,
and you're like, burn your life down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is pretty much like the. Again, the example that I always give is like, oh, it's songs where people singing, "We're going to die, la 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 la."
Yeah.
But then again,
burn your life down. Yeah.
So I think we are. I mean, time recording. I mean, we are at the end of January. But at the time recording, we're in just on the road to Christmas, and
Christmas cusp.
Yeah, and one of my favorite Christmas songs is "We're All Going to Die" by Malcolm Middleton.
Nice.
Which is actually a very uplifting song when you think about it. If you're not listening to it, give it a listen, because the first lines, "We're all going to die, but what is nothing," but then by the time you get to the song, it's actually very, very uplifting. I guarantee. But again, sentiments that I feel are quite similar to the kind of tone to the album. And I think it's that bit that I'm quite like. And yeah, I think Tegan and Sara perhaps said, but I kind of do need to perhaps listen to a bit more, but we'll get into that a bit later on. We'll talk about the other discography. For the reception of the album, generally positive. Yeah. 92% on Absolute Punk, 4 out of 5 on All Music, B+ 10 weekly. The Observer gave it 5 out of 5. Rolling Stone gave it 3.5. The BBC was, in bracket, favourable. It's scoring 80 out of 100 on review aggregator Metacritic. So, and I had that open. AV Club gave it 91, saying lyrical
Tongue twister, that one.
Yeah, the AV Club gave it 91. Lyrical wallowing is almost a required element for this genre, and ultimately even the con's failings work in its favour, providing a macro version of what the best Tegan and Sara songs do by stumbling along recklessly, then falling together. Yeah, Mojo said the con rockets beyond even their own high standards. And yeah, on the flip side, Sputnik Music gave it 70. The NME gave it 40, or 4 out of 10. A saddening case of brick. A saddening case of brick production. Paper Soul here. The Quins are little more than twin airbags.
Well, that's a load of bullshit. Fuck off, enemy.
Yeah.
You can cut that out, but
there's a user review. Some of the user reviews, a lot of them are, there's quite a lot of, like 34 positive and 3 negative.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. And again, naturally, I'm interested in the negatives. Because some of them are really funny. And, ooh, okay, there's like a really long bit of paragraph, and I'm only going to read the first sentence because the first sentence will tell you automatically not to read the rest of it.
Right.
So this was released. This was written in 2007. Were it not for the fact that this duo is comprised of outspokenly gay women who happen to be very likable from Calgary, Canada, not the music centre of the universe, no one would listen to this crap.
Oh my god. Yeah, that tells you everything you need to know, doesn't it?
Another one which is linked to the Pitchfork review. So the Pitchfork review gave it 6.6, which for Pitchfork generally favourable.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah. Now, so the writer starts with Tegan and Sara should no longer be mistaken for tampon rock, a comparison only fair because of the company they kept, which links to someone a 0 review, a 0 review, which. Goes awful music. I agree with Pitchfork. This is crap tampon rock for turds with lyrics. That
feels a bit brutal.
Yeah, I don't get
and untrue.
Yeah, I don't get it. But the Pitchfork review. Pitchfork review is kind of like making comparisons to Avril Lavigne or This Fair, and it does go on towards kind of like the more slightly mature sliders.
I don't like the phrase tampon rock very much, to be honest.
Yeah, it's not. It's not a good. It's not a good.
Feels a bit misogynistic.
Yeah,
really, doesn't
I mean,
it?
who wrote this? Written by Jessica Suarez. Oh, okay, so it's a female.
Jessica, come on, man. Join the sisterhood.
Yeah, they refer to Back of Your Head having the album's best keyboard lines. Yeah, but here they claim that lyrically that there are as many turds as gems, though, which I don't know. I thought the lyrics were quite good. So that's the Pitchfork review, which again,
pitch. Fuck off. I would say to that.
But then again, Pitchfork, I mean, I don't want Pitchfork to change. It's always, each reviews are very entertaining. But
there you go.
But on the flip side, that's only a few, there's only a few, like 4 negatives to 87 positive reviews. So people who kind of have a better idea what they're talking about. So yeah, the first one by MD, written in the 6th of August 2007. Simply an amazing album. TNS create nostalgically beautiful landscape with their sweet harmonies and heavily riffs. P.S. Anyone notice that the majority of people who don't like this album happen to be straight boys?
Yeah, there's a weird little theme there. I can see that. Yeah.
Open brackets. Well, I'm guessing that they're straight. Go listen to Something Lame by that new Smashing Pumpkins album.
Ooh, sick burn.
Man, use it voice again. And the second one, I'll spare you their usual snobbish, self-righteous, hipster cute banter and tell it to you straight. Pitchfork better get that pitchfork out of their skinny indie arses. Yeah, Metacritic is great.
Yeah, that's better.
But yeah, the positive outweighs the negatives and stuff.
Yeah.
So
correct.
Yeah. So it won. It was nominated for the Juno Awards for Alternative Album of the Year. It was nominated for the Polaris Music Prize. It won the Studio 8 Song of 2009 for The Con, the actual song The Con.
Yeah, it's good.
So yeah, in terms of its performance, it's gone gold in Canada. Yeah, it got to 4 on the Canadian Albums Chart. It got to 4 on the US Tastemakers Chart. 10 in the top rock albums for the US. 11 in the alternative albums in the US, 34 on the Billboard 200.
Pretty good.
Yeah, and 47 in Belgium.
Well, there you go. That's the notoriously hard market to break, the Belgian one.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, the release history of the standard edition. So this was actually released in the UK about 8 months after the US release.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Do you remember when that happened?
Yeah, God. Imagine having to physically wait for things to be released and arrive. Dark times.
Yeah, but I think, but overall though, I mean, apart from a few dark horses, overly kind of very well received and very well received from
quite
critics
rightly.
and fans alike. Have you ever seen them live?
I haven't, and I'd really like to. I really would. I've just not had the opportunity to, but I would. You have, you said, you half, when you?
Yeah, I'm just quite curious. I kind of want to. I've just got Setlist FM. I'm trying to see if I can suddenly figure out if I can find the set list for the support.
I know that
slot.
they've been touring the US at the moment, but I know they've both. It seems to be they come down with COVID all the time.
Mm-hmm.
One or the other comes down with COVID. I also know that one of them recently had a child, so I don't know if that will hamper their future touring opportunities. But I hope to see them one day because I think they'll be very good.
Yeah, I think there was here a few years ago. I'm trying to pad for time. When did I see him? I've got the ticket somewhere in front of me on my list of. I'm sorry, it's 2012 somewhere. Hang on, no, it was Halloween 2012 because I remember the Killers played Flesh and Bone.
Oh,
they played Bones. Yes, I have it. Tegan and Sara set list at the LG Arena.
Ah.
No, okay, they didn't play I Know, I made that up.
Oh.
Yeah, so this was Walking with a Ghost, Hell, I'm Not Your Hero, Now I'm Messed Up, Alligator, Back in Your Head, Closer, Feel It in My Bones, and Living Room, The Closer Living Room. Okay.
I love Living Room. Close is a good song as well. That's one of the more kind of electro-y ones. Electro poppy. Yeah,
so that's the they must not play that. I must have misremembered that then, or it's so that's
the Mandela effect.
So I can't really remember much from that because I think we only walked in about the halfway point of the set. It was quite far back, so I couldn't get into it, which is so. But you've not, so you definitely not listened to them. So
not seen them live, no.
So they're not.
But I would love to.
But they're not currently touring.
No, not the UK anyway. So, as I say, I don't know when they will. Obviously, COVID changed a lot for a lot of people, and I know that one of them has had a child. So, yeah, not holding my breath to see them anytime soon, but I hope to one day.
Yeah, there's nothing on. They've got no events upcoming on the website at the moment.
Yeah, fair enough. Babies ruin everything.
So, if people have listened to this and want to venture to other albums, where would you recommend they go to next?
Or in Tegan and Sara's catalogue,
yes,
particular. Yeah, good question. I think if you like this one and that kind of tone, then if you want to go for some of the earlier stuff, perhaps I think If It Was You is a really good kind of folkier, rawer album. If you want to go down a bit more of a polished, modern feel, shall we say, maybe a bit more electro poppy, punky fun, not punky, sorry, electro poppy fun, then Love You to Death is good, and Heartthrob as well. They both kind of upbeaty, poppy, with still some sadness in there. Don't worry, we'll still have a good cry. And as I mentioned, if you really like The Con and the songs within that, then listen to the cover album that they released in 2017 because it's really interesting to see how different artists have interpreted those songs.
Yeah, so the couple of, I'll be interested in hearing, mainly because it's churches. And I quite love churches. Be interesting to see their take on, Call It Up.
Yeah.
Who did Hop a Plane? City in Colour. Okay. And he said, I have to give that a listen as well. I think Tegan and Sara they kind of slowly have started also falling into kind of that unfortunate aspect where they've got so many albums that when there's quite a few albums, it's quite hard. I find it quite intimidating to go through. Yeah. So unless there's a new album which kind of fucks me in, it's kind of like, oh, I don't know what to do.
So I totally get that. That makes sense.
Yeah, but yeah, I need to have a. But yeah, I think I did really like this one, so I have to try and
good.
give a case there because because they've always have been on my kind of radar to listen to. So I have to have a listen to. What I need to do is listen to a couple of albums, particularly because time recording, I'm due to have a few days off work.
Nice.
Yeah.
You just want that. They just want back in their head, or other way around. They just want back in your head.
Yes. Yeah, they want back in my head. Yeah. So we're here at the very, very, very important question, which is the song for the playlist. So anyone who's not listened to this before, what this means is I'm going to have to ask Frankie to choose one song to be immortalised forever, to be put onto the Spotify Hall of Fame playlist. So this will be following Dear Theodosia from Hamilton.
Oh, that is a nice song. That's a lovely song. I think the only one to follow that up with is Mambo No. 5 by Lee Baker.
Yeah.
No, I know it has to be Tegan and Sara one. Are they joking? So I think it has to be The Con, because I think I think if you want a good representation of that album, The Con ticks all the boxes. So let's go with The Con.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's a good introduction to Tegan and Sara as an artist as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Would you agree with my choice?
I think, yeah, I do. I mean, I can't veto your choice. I mean, I think the Con's still good. Con's a good song. So
it's a good song.
Yeah, it's a good song. So that's going to join. So that's going to join that. And so so the Con follows that and say again, as I always quite like to do, I've just told the guest who's been picked, what's been picked for the next episode, and it's like so it's going to be a very interesting follow on from.
Right. One. That's going to be a journey that are going on.
So, and we are at the end of our conversation, Frankie. If people want to find you and listen to your podcast, where can they find you? Or podcasts, actually, yeah.
Podcasts, yeah. You can find me on all of the social places, whether they're still there or not is a different story with certain ones. Frankie is Swell, one word. And yeah, Red and Buried is my crime book podcast that is on the We Made This network. I also do another podcast, as you've alluded to, called The Labours of Hercule, all about David Suchet's TV show Poirot, where my co-host Adam and we talk about the episodes, but we also solve some mysteries together. So if you're into that sort of thing, come and have a listen. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Looks like it's a side note. If people want to laugh at my expense, on the time of airing, Shipwrecks and Comatose, the Red Dwarf podcast I'm going through, he's going through Crime Traveller from 1997, and we do reference kind of Jonathan Creek and Poirot. Nice. At the time of recording, recently we just released the blooper reel of Shipwrecks and Comatose, and one of those blooper reels is me failing to pronounce Poirot.
You're doing it right now, so I imagine it's going very well.
Yeah.
Great. Poirot.
Yeah, but basically if you want to hear me getting even more brummy, it's like Poirot.
Brilliant.
Poirot.
Very good. I like it.
Again, it's one of those shows I probably need to watch just to pronounce his name properly. But
you've not watched Poirot?
No.
Jesus Christ.
Okay. I thought I'd drop that at the end of our
so I don't hang up on you.
I just throw the desk up and just like storm off going, what the
flip a table. Do you know what though, Matt? I'm excited for you because there's going to change your life and it's all to come. So what a reason to keep living. You know, the We Are Gonna Die happy songs, turn those off and stick on a Poirot. Poirot.
Poirot.
Poirot. Very good.
Poirot.
You've done it. You nailed it. That's it.
Yeah.
Très bien.
Yeah, whatever you do, don't listen to that Smegheads then, because you got it's just me trying to for about 2 minutes trying to mispronounce. I try and reference the podcast. Because the conversation briefly went to that show whose name I can't pronounce, and then for me trying to explain
Poirot.
You
can call him Hercule if you prefer.
Yeah.
If you're on first name terms with him.
Agatha Christie's Belgian detective. That's easy to say. But yeah, do listen to The Labours of Hercule and Red and Buried.
There you go.
Right.
2 for 2. Thank you.
I've got a lot more sympathy for Sarah now.
for heaven's sake. He has no excuse, but whatever. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, but do listen to that. Do give them a listen. Good. I think the author interviews are fascinating.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Just a lot of times on the creative process as well, in terms of how they kind of create stuff, which I think is quite universal. Even if you're not a crime fan, very worth listening to the author, because it's a very universal kind of conversation and stuff, and it's very fascinating. And I think you've had quite a few good interviews so far, and I'm looking forward to seeing.
We've been really lucky.
Yeah,
and we've got some really good ones planned for next year as well. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, so do listen to them. So so that's it. We are now at the very end of the conversation, and I just want to say thank you ever so much for agreeing to come on, even after knowing that I've mispronounced.
Well, if I'd known that before, I may not have been here. But thank you for having me back. As I say, thanks for having me on, and putting up with me and my various emotional ramblings about Tegan and Sara. So thank you.
You've been listening to Pick a Disc, and I've been your host, Matthew Latham. Our theme music is Pump by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. Pick a Disc is hosted by the We Made This podcast network, and you can find them on www.spreaker.com/user/we-made-this. You can find the Pick a Disc show site on www.spreaker.com/show/pick-a-disc. You can find us on all the usual social media type places like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter under Pick a Disc. You can also email us on pickadisc@gmail.com. Until next time, happy listening to all those discs that you are picking. Goodbye.
Do you like crime stories, books, and people talking about those things? Then you should check out the Read and Buried podcast.
A murder? Oh.
I'm Frankie.
And I'm Sarah.
And in each episode, we pick a different theme and surprise and delight each other with a cheeky little review.
As you started reading it, I was like, this sounds like a romance novel. And then you got to monstrous crime.
Yay, there it is. That's what we're here for, isn't it?
We're also regularly visited by many talented and best-selling authors, including the likes of Chris Whitaker, Elizabeth Haynes, Emma Stonex, Fiona Cummins, and a whole lot more.
I obviously listened to the podcast, and I listened to you interviewing Chris Whitaker, and I thought, oh, hey, that sounds like a really good fun podcast.
If you like your crime books with a big side of silly, this is the podcast for you. Listen to the Read and Buried podcast right now, brought to you by the We Made This network.